Aaron dropped that off late today. It can't read it. As opposed to that other thing. Yep.
All right, call the meeting to order. We'll have a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have roll call
Supervisor Bozzer.
here.
I'm here. Treasurer Kowalski.
Here.
Trustee Woods.
Here.
Trustee Wright.
Here.
All present, Mr. Supervisor.
All right. The reports, permits, we can read those. Fire chief, do you have anything or is he? Yep, he's here.
Year to date, 251 calls currently, through 3 o'clock today.
Okay. Treasurer?
So I copy on everybody's space. I apologize, I didn't get it in time for the packet, and I did put copies out on the table. It's pretty self-explanatory. I did made the final, I'll say, transfer of CD monies from Sturgis Bank to Marshall Community Credit Union to continue to build our interest rates. I did find an error in the Blue Ox Credit Union balance that it was both their mistake and my mistake. I told them to leave $5 in the account. They apparently left $105 in the account. So that's my error. I corrected it in this report. I added, just for maybe some interest, the actual interest income that these are generating on an annual and monthly basis at this point. Tax bills went out, and the tax bill complaints and checks are coming in. Unless anybody had any questions.
Station one, I see Aaron's here. Do you have anything to say or?
It's an agenda item later, so.
Okay, all right, all right. Anybody from the sheriff's department here? I don't see anybody.
I think so.
All right. Planning commission.
Well, just a couple things. The Dave Brown and solar issues are still work in progress. So the Fire Station 1 setback issue with Maida is on the ZBA agenda, which is next week, right, Jeff?
Right.
29th?
If that's Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday? Yeah, 29th, yeah. The zoning map review committee, we're getting closer to being done. The parcels that we have identified that need correcting on the map, the owners will be needing to be notified prior to getting the changes through to the ZBA. So that's still a work in progress there. I noticed this one from a while back. They talked about the ordinances, waiting on the missing pages and waiting for them to be added to the website. And also there was talk of doing another township survey. And they plan to have a draft by the next PC meeting. And they would like the board to be involved And just if any questions that come up, I'll be the intermediary, just send them to me and I will forward them on to the PC folks.
Will that be on that mail chip thing or?
We're looking at several different avenues, the MailChimp, putting them, sending them out with the winter tax notices again. We want to, and hopefully we'll have the MailChimp up and running and maybe even just end up doing a dedicated mailing. So there's a lot of options that we're looking at. And if anybody has any other options, please send them forward and, we'll discuss it all and figure out the best plan, how to get it out to everybody and hopefully get more responses than we did on the last one.
Yeah, sometimes I think with the tax bills, because people are more interested in their tax bill than.
It needs to be a separate
That's what I.
separate entity. So that's all I have right now.
All right, the PA 425 subcommittee.
Want to go first or?
Either way, should we, I mean, we haven't,
I guess simply at this point, we've met twice with Rob Thal primarily, but Seth has joined the conversation today. And I think we made good progress and we're going to propose an additional agenda item to, I guess to explain more in more detail.
right, yeah, so essentially, basically Rob Thal and Seth kind of said, this is really the first step. We need to do something just because it's time sensitive. But it is, again, setting us up for the water franchise agreement to kind of help protect the township in terms of 425s and annexation. So he said that's the first step. The second step would then just be like to see what the response is on that. And it might be the door that opens to help talk about the 425 with the city and get things going depending on how they respond to that. So he said, this is a way to get us to the table of saying, we need to talk about this more. But he goes, it needs to start with the water franchise agreement. So.
Just one other thing that he's mentioned each time we've met is that the map, an accurate map that hopefully agrees with the city's records of the 425 transfers is in his mind very important. So I think, because, and I know how difficult it is because the properties when they're transferred are township properties that then quite often are combined and split and they become city properties and it's hard to match. But I think it's critical that we have that and agree with the city on that. So.
Okay. Budget report.
Yeah, I'll have through the end of July and then we're going to monthly thereafter.
Okay. Communications are done.
Mr. Supervisor, we need to go back to number 2,
Back
Right.
to number 2.
the second line on the agenda.
A
Motion.
motion to approve the
Oh,
agenda.
you're right. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include, I want to make sure the wording's right on this. Amend the agenda to respond to discuss and make decisions on the water and sewer agreement that the city gave to us in April. That would be an additional thing that we'd like to talk about and discuss and make a decision.
Second that
All
one.
right. Then, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Carried. That'd be number 6 under new business then. All right.
Now, yours was a motion to amend.
To amend
To amend
Now we
it,
have
so
to vote
Now
on,
I'll move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Okay. There's,
And I'll support that.
okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna open up the public comment on listed on agenda items. So
You're live.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Sandra Sinke. In regards to the office manager position and the requested salary increase, I have some questions. First, have you done a salary survey? Do you know what other townships in Calhoun County pay for this position or a similar position? On July 12th, Teconcha ran an ad in our advisor for a part-time front office position. I have it with me if anybody wants to look at it. Per this ad, the position is responsible for billing water and sewer customers for accounts payable and accounts receivable, along with general office duties. What do you think? Could the general office duties be somewhat similar to some of the duties of our office manager? Only they call it a part-time front office position. Maybe if somebody would call Concha, they could find out what the wage would likely be. They could also verify that because the job is titled as part-time, that their person probably doesn't receive benefits like our office manager is getting. Vacation time, 6 days, IRA contribution. To the best of my knowledge, employers generally only give benefits to full-time staff members. Out of curiosity, I decided to do my own salary survey for an office manager via a Google search. I was not able to get statistics for the Midwest like I wanted. Rather, it gave me information for the whole country. The result showed that $24.75 per hour was the average wage for an office manager position. That is a huge difference from what you are considering. If you approve the $47.45 per hour salary, you would be paying him $22.70 more per hour than the national average. And by the way, Google indicated that this information was compiled on May 25th, 2025. So it is current. Additionally, I want to say that I realized that this search may have only considered the private sector and not any government units. But it's a starting point as far as I'm concerned. And now my last question is, do you really need an office manager position? Or would a different job title that is considered part-time be more appropriate? He has no one reporting to him, so why should he be called a manager? He doesn't work 40 hours a week, so the position should be titled as part-time. It is my opinion that you should consider changing the job title and also researching other Calhoun County townships for what their salary ranges are. Then possibly revising our salary range as a result of your findings. If you table this decision for one more month, you would have time to do that. Thank you.
Rick Sadler, Squaw Creek. By my counts, this is the fifth meeting. Two special meetings dealing with this particular subject of Carl's job description. And now on top of that, how many billable hours are we going to get charged because we had to get the lawyers involved for something that's quite honestly redundant? This was voted on 2 years ago. He hasn't been following the contract or whatever you want to call it. Why are we even having this discussion? Why is he even still working? You allowed it, Jeff and Dave, because you were here before. You allowed the 4 days to go on, or the 3-day work week to go on and on and on. Are we going to get any of that money back somewhere along the line? No, probably not, huh? Okay. Like Glenn stated in the special meeting that, Dave, you're never in the office, so maybe you're out of the loop as far as what goes on around there, but it doesn't excuse it. You're the supervisor. You're ultimately responsible for the township. So just like if you were the manager of the business. And, Jeff, I don't know why you haven't said anything. At this point, it's been going on for 2 years, and now all of a sudden we want to bring this up or we want to bring this to a conclusion. And we wouldn't even be talking about it if Glenn hadn't brought it up. So, it just seems sort of, I don't know, redundant, I guess. And do you see the two ladies that came in from my neighborhood today with me, Sandra and Janet? I drove them in. They live in the neighborhood. They used to be fixtures here at these meetings when we were struggling with the previous board. And, but since you guys got elected, you really haven't seen them much. And I would think that they figured, probably like a lot of us, that, okay, hey, we got a new board, the township's going to be moving in the correct direction. But the fact that they showed backup should give you guys a lot of pause. It should tell you how far off the reservation you've gotten. You have wasted far too much time and money, taxpayer money, on this cluster. Let's not tackle the tough issues like, the issues with the fire station, or heaven forbid, get the zoning correct over there, or the talks with Derek Perry, which I see that you guys are moving along. But, let's not do that. Let's have 2 special meetings and 3 regular meetings so we can debate this. So, again, will we get reimbursed for the hours or the days that weren't worked? And what about the lawyer's fees? I'd like to see a detailed invoice, honestly, on how many billable hours were spent on this fiasco. I'd like it detailed. So, however that may be coming up. It seems fairly obvious the course that you guys seem to be taking this evening, and it really bothers me. The board started out with so much promised, and now it's reduced to kowtowing basically to an employee who's grossly overpaid and will continue to be grossly overpaid with this new agreement that's, that you guys are thinking about it. Let's just make a new agreement instead of making the hard decisions. Should he be terminated? If it was a private sector job, he'd been gone 2 years ago for not doing it. You know, at this point in time, the way I'm looking at it, we might as well have Bob and the rest of the boys up here, you know, doing this job because, you know, at least with them, we knew we were gonna get screwed, not like what's happening here. Thanks.
Julie Bryant, Squaw Creek. I wasn't really sure if I was gonna speak on this part of this, but after seeing this little information that I've got here, I have something to say about this as well. Like Rick said, this is way too many meetings, you know, and how much money have we spent on the lawyers trying to figure this all out? Okay, just from my accounting background, first of all, I'm looking here, which is incorrect from the agreement 2 years ago, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays from 8:45 until 3:30 with 30 minutes allowed for a lunch break. All right, so that's 6 hours and 15 minutes. And then are we paying him for the lunch break too? You know, I work like a regular job for a medical supply company and I work 8 hours a day. And then plus I have to work, or plus I have to be there an extra half hour because they don't pay me for my lunch breaks. And I work a full day, 5 days a week. Okay, so the math just isn't mathing out here, guys. I don't know, type this up. So then up here in the paragraph above where the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays is, so we're gonna say the fourth paragraph down, it said this monthly compensation is intended to cover 19.5 hours. Okay, so if I'm taking 6 hours and 15 minutes times 3, how are we coming up with 19 and a half? They're paying him for lunch too. So, and then like what Sandra said, this amount of money is just crazy. Okay, I mean, I figured out, you said 3,000 to start, only is gonna get a raise after that, if you guys can read this in a few months. So right now, 3,518 a month. That's $879 a week. And I divided it by like, I don't know if it was, I got notes here, 5.5 or 6 hours. I come up with like $48 an hour. $48 an hour? Are you serious? I want this job. Okay? Like I help people get insulin pumps and have to work with doctors and insurance companies and don't make $48 an hour full time. And the vacations, like they're talking about, the vacations, the, you know, paid lunch. My gosh, no wonder this guy doesn't want to leave, but he doesn't want to work either, right? So anyway, these numbers are messed up. This is our taxpayer money and this is on the local level. You guys have a chance to do something about this and you should. Thank you.
Mary Wayne Adams, coming over from Marshall. Usually I wouldn't be here tonight, but for some reason, the city decided that they had a lack of business and they didn't need to have a meeting. And they seem to always do that when they end up getting some negative backlash. First thing on your minutes, I notice you're starting to do the same thing that the city is. And when you are talking about the public comment, you're giving the names of the people who are making the comment, but you're not giving the substance of the comment. And if that's the only thing you care about, we should just come up and give our name and go sit down. The whole purpose of public comment is to have the comments recognized and recorded. Now, not every municipality does this. I was up in Lee Township and looked at their minutes, and they kind of got it reversed. They will put in the substance of the comment, but not the person's name. But, you know, for the sake of full transparency, you should have the person's name and the substance of the comment, just so you know where it's coming from. Okay. I'm 70 years old, you know, means did a lot of work. I was still alive and not bankrupt. And every job I had to work for the money. And I was never able to make an agreement where I was going to promise a certain amount of work and then give 3/4 of that and then expect the same amount of compensation. And it only seems like these things can happen within the realm of government dynamics. In the private sector, just like Julie said, you have to work to get paid. And considering the exorbitant amount of salary that's being given, and the actual severity of the workload, I don't think the paperwork load in Marshall Township is that overbearing, especially when you can only work 3/4 of the time you're supposed to. And, you know, the expectation should be that you want to get paid, you need to do the work that you promised. That's the standard in the economy. Every place I've been to during my entire life. So, considering the fire station issue, things are not set in concrete yet. There's a lot of things going on. There was a permit hearing by Eagle Environment, Great Lakes and Energy Department of the state, considering the permitting of the Blue Oval factory. And again, there was not a large turnout for public comment, but the proportion was 4-1. And the only one who spoke in favor of it, the attorney for Maida, who I don't have to cite by name, made serious misrepresentations to the Eagle Board. But we gave them serious information, and they are taking written comments. They may find any of your comments to be of value up to the 28th Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy are taking comments on the permitting of the Blue Oval factory and the DTA HVAC system for the factory up to the 28th. So either way, if you're for it or against it, tell them why. But there are serious issues concerning the large storage of highly toxic chemicals, not to mention lithium. No, lithium is lithium. Excuse me.
I think your 5 minutes is up. So.
Okay. All right.
Thank
I'll
you.
be back for another 5 minutes.
And Marshall Township. I don't need this thing. I really did not plan on coming and speaking, but I'll tell you, my taxes keep going up. I'm getting tired of this. When will that stop? Or is that something you cannot do anything about? I have nothing against Carl. He's probably sufficient for the position. But I'll tell you what, when I was employed, I did 110%. And there's a lot of stuff I had to do. Since I worked for the post office, the mail had to go out. And if that meant I gave up my evening to run it to Kalamazoo so it would go out, I did it. I didn't get reimbursed for that. That was just something that had to be done. And I'm getting really disgusted with the fact that every time the year turns around, I'm getting a tax increase. My house is 56 years old. It is not worth what everybody thinks it is. And if they want to come out and look, that's fine. I'll be there. Let me know ahead of time, because I have gates and I lock them. I have a bad neighbor to the south, and that's why I have gates. But I am tired of this increase in my taxes every blasted year. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Lee Rathwell, Soresco. I have a real issue with a couple of things on here, like the fire station. Who's gonna pay the extra costs? Like, you know, we share the bills next door here this way. Now, having everything over there, it's gonna be a whole new, more expensive bills, electricity, phone, water, and sewer, water, that we didn't have before when we had this perfectly fine fire station right here that was built the proper distance back from the road or whatever is not properly done over there, which I would say, since we don't own the building, let's make them move it to where it's supposed to be. Build it right. Why did they get to just bully ahead and build it incorrectly? Even as a homeowner, somebody would have been out there saying, no, you can't have your, I don't care if your basement's already dug, you can't build it there. You have to move it. And that's the way it would have been. Or we had to pay some huge fine. But if there's a fine, who's paying it? We are. I don't want to pay a fine for something we didn't need. Well, I guess we do if we're going to take care of the fires that will eventually come up over here, because I think you need a lot more, I don't know if it's moving ahead in technology and all new things, but yes, we will have to have more because of this, but we're paying for it anyway, so why is it not then put where it's supposed to be? And who's going to pay all that extra? I don't want to. Our taxes are going up because we not only have to pay for things that we don't need, but then we're paying somebody $47 an hour to do a job they don't want to do, that they were hired to do 4 days a week. They don't want to work 4 days a week. They don't have to work 4 days a week. They're only going to work 3. And they're not going to work the full time that they're here. They're going to just sit around part of the time because they don't have to. They don't have to do it if they don't want to. When I worked at an eye doctor's office, I was in charge of filing and doing preliminary exams. When I was done with doing those jobs, I couldn't just take a seat, grab a cup of coffee. I went on and found something else to do to be useful. I was on somebody else's clock. I was on their Dr. Christensen's payroll. He was paying for that time. So when I was there, I worked for him. When I was at the school, I worked for the school. I continually worked. I did not say, oh, well, I don't feel like working on next Tuesday. The kids, well, I don't care. I don't have to do that. I can only work 3 days. You know, it's okay. And, and the outrageous pay, that's part of why we pay so much taxes. If we're paying somebody that much, you should really have 2 people there 4 days a week for that amount of money. And if 2 years ago, they said they would work 4 days a week because that's what the job was laid out as, then they should work 4 days a week. And that amount of money is just ridiculous. I'm sure we could find good qualified candidates to take that position for 4 days a week and probably a lot less an hour. But even if you had to pay that outrageous amount, you really need to get the whole 4 days out of them. And if they have to spend part of that time wiping cobwebs out of the corners, so be it. Dust, I don't care. Move, do work, find other things you can do to help somebody else out. You don't get to, well, I guess some people do get to do that, but it's not right. If you're being paid to work, you should be doing the work. And 4 days a week, we really need to go back and clarify that and say, and I saw this new contract, it says 3 days a week. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I don't want to pay my tax money to pay somebody $47 an hour to work 3 days a week and not even do whatever they don't want to do. If they don't feel like doing it, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Well, that does not fly very many places. And it should not fly with my money, with my tax money that I'm paying, which shouldn't be going up because it should not be continually raised so that we can overpay people to not do their jobs, so we can pay extra bills that we didn't need on a building that's not put in the right place. And who's in charge of making sure things are up to code or wherever they're supposed to be? Are they getting paid? I hope they don't get paid. I hope that's a voluntary job because they're not doing it. Apparently, that's a big thing around here. You get hired for a job and you don't do it. I guess, I'm retired, but maybe I should go back to work and not do a job. I could use the extra $47 an hour. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? And we'll move on. Discussion items. So
He manages himself. I think that we need a title change on that. Because he manages himself. He's in office. The personal manager of himself or something.
thank you. Fire board terms, Glenn.
Yeah, so I think this is taken care of. Jeff indicated, and I think I saw that the terms are now on the webpage. Appreciate that. So I think that's all I had.
And then the unsolicited office manager interest.
So, sort of out of the blue, I was contacted by Melissa Bowman, and had an interest in office manager role that she thought may be open. My only conversation really with her, besides the resume that I gave you copies of, was really that the position is currently filled, number one. And then I did explore with her, I think the job description and the pay scale from 2023. And my reason for doing that was if there was any interest in the board, of pursuing alternate people, to me, that was kind of the standard, the minimum standard that I thought would be good to review with her so that she didn't have higher expectations than maybe the board was willing to provide. And so that gets back to the 30-some dollars an hour that was approved back in 2023 for 4 days of work. And her only other comment to me was that she was more interested in 4 days than 3 days at that hourly rate. Looking at her resume, she has quite a bit of experience. I think you could read it for yourself. Core competencies are generally around working with people, or organization, team environment, problem solving skills. So I didn't know what to do with it, so I thought I'd at least share it with the board. I'd like to see us at least talk to Melissa Bowman, get a little perspective about what she's looking for, and if it's not now, maybe there's a time in the future where she could be an asset. So I guess I would make a motion that however the board feels comfortable, that we interview Melissa Bowman and find out more about her interests in working in the township.
There a second? Seeing no second.
Do more with it.
But
I didn't hear it.
Glenn proposed.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, there wasn't a second.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, on the referrals, there's none. Motion to approve the following agenda items requested to be voted on. If you got an item you want voted on separately.
I would like to separate the resolution for the bill of sale and the approval of agreement between the Marshall Township and Carl Fowler.
Okay.
I guess as well as the added agenda item of the discussion of the water franchise agreement.
I'll move to approve items 1 and 4 then.
I'll second that.
Okay, and then we'll leave 2, 3, and 6. So,
Yeah.
all right. Go to old unfinished business. Minutes of the 16/25 regular board meeting, those are attached. Anybody has any?
I think Jeff, you clarified one of my questions on the monthly budget reports. It sounds like we'll see one next month, and then
April through July,
right.
and then monthly thereafter.
And then the only other thing was it looked like we kind of left it open-ended, but I thought on the topic of an assessor report, I thought what my memory said is that you were gonna talk to Dan about potentially a report. It was kind of an action, as I recall. Does that ring a bell? Or
I didn't know I was gonna talk to him, but
I mean, I could talk to him too. And it's not a big deal. I just think at the end of the day, we don't hear a lot from the assessor and I think we're all probably a little bit green on assessment and that, which is part of how our taxes go up, so. But that's all I have.
Okay. We'll move on to number 2, the resolution approving the bill of sale for the new fire station attached as recommended by the attorney.
In order to kind of reduce confusion, shouldn't we do 1 and 4 and then go back and pick
Okay,
up 2 and
yeah,
3?
that'd be good.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to number 4, checks issued in the amount of $83,383.32 cash. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We do a roll call vote on those 2 then.
Okay. Trustee Woods,
Yes.
trustee Wright,
Yes.
supervisor Bozzer,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski,
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay. So now we'll go back to number 2, the resolution approving the bill of sale for the new fire station.
I'll move approval of the resolution.
Second, we'll open it up for discussion.
I'd like to suggest it might be appropriate to have Aaron
Yes.
give us an update before we
Yeah.
get into it.
Actually,
Vote on it?
he did tell me that earlier.
I can't answer questions on the site plan and the setback issue if you want me to. The setback in the building is situated where it's at based on the direction we received from the prior zoning administrator, Paul Anderson. And I can remember that because we have Paul Anderson at SME too. So, he told us where to put that building. That's where it went. In the, review of the new zoning administrator, looked at the overlay district related to Michigan Avenue, which is a setback requirement. Doesn't explicitly state in the ordinance why it's there, but my assumption is it's a setback requirement for buildings situated along Michigan Avenue such that they're further away from the road right of way, mainly for future development. Michigan Avenue at the time is a 2-lane roadway. It could always have been expanded. You don't want to have a bunch of buildings right up next to the existing right of way in case you need to further widen it, right? So if you apply that setback to current Michigan Avenue, we do not meet those requirements. Now, Michigan Avenue, as you can all see, is moving, right? It's being shifted to the other side of the building. So if you were to take those requirements and apply them to where that building sits now and where Michigan Avenue is going to be in the next 6 months, we meet the setback requirements. It's far enough away based on your ordinance. So it's one of those situations. Yes, we are not in compliance. The building is not in compliance with the current ordinance, which is why we're going through the ZBA to request a variance. But if you were to evaluate that structure in 6 months, there wouldn't be any issues. So that describes it. If you have questions, let me know. But
Just one comment on that. So specifically, Paul Anderson, zoning administrator, had no authority to give you that ability to move forward. That's a ZBA requirement. So he exceeded his authority.
or didn't interpret the ordinance as he should have, right? I mean, he looked at the ordinance based on our building and how we were interpreting it and suggested putting the building in the spot, and then he reviewed it and didn't have any comments, and it went through the planning commission process and there weren't any issues. And I can never remember the acronym, but the new zone.
60I.
Yes. Shelley started reviewing all the documents and ongoing projects with the township when she came in earlier this year and saw the overlay district and Michigan Avenue and suggested that to dot our Ts and cross our Is, we go through the ZBA to have that documented. But in terms of, I look at it in terms of what is going to be, right? What is being built, and the building is built. if you follow where Michigan Avenue is going to be at and where that right of way sits and how far the building is away from.
I'm just out of curiosity, so I have two questions with that, would it still fit with what that old road's gonna be though? Like there's still a road there. I understand it's gonna be a cul-de-sac right around there, but like, would that still fit in those things?
Yes, it would. So that would be like a secondary artery road, right? The cul-de-sac, it's a dead end street. So even if you apply those setback requirements based on the type of road and it's a corner lot, yes.
And
Yeah.
did we know that when that approval, did we know Michigan Avenue was gonna move? And did Paul know that Michigan Avenue was gonna move at that time? Like, I guess my question is like, when did we know that road was gonna move? Because, was it when that zoning happened or after that?
So I don't know on the timing of what Paul knew or didn't know related to it, right? We always had the general understanding that Michigan Avenue was going to be shifted. I mean, that was the whole purpose of the fire station project, right? Is if Michigan Avenue shifts, the current fire station is in the way of whether that alignment needs to go. So in our discussions with MDOT, it was always the goal to try and push that building as far away from New Michigan Avenue because it's an intersection, right? You want to have enough of a turning movement to allow to come out of there. So that was always our intent. And so we moved that building as far north as we could based on what Paul had interpreted the ordinance at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify again, the original proposal by MEDA was both the township hall and the fire station. And there was a response to that.
To purchase
offer. Pardon me?
To purchase the property, is what you're
Correct.
saying, yes.
And then we went into a dormant period and one person came forward and said we're getting a new fire station. And apparently a lot of work had been done to locate that fire station, but not a lot of work had been done on relocating both the township hall and the fire station.
Is there a question? I don't know.
I'm just clarifying the timeline and what took place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware there was an offer to buy both of these. There was a proposal by the township from a cost standpoint, what that would be. This was an alternative solution. The entire property.
Yeah.
Okay, so status on the fire station. Temp occupancy permit was obtained today. We got a temp occupancy permit. So that's in place. It's valid for 20 days. It's conditional on the inspectors doing their final punch list items. So a couple highlights on that. Electrician, it's a generator. He's got to verify final connections on the generator. Mechanical has a few items. There's a door, I think, that needs to get adjusted to the mechanical room. There's the sinks that need to be final inspection because the countertops went in today. And then he inspects the plumbing, the gas connection on the generator as well. Building inspector, I think the only thing on his list was a couple signs, like placards, like the handicap sign that needs to go on the front of the building. I think that was it based on my conversation with Frank this morning. It was just that sign. So that's valid for 20 days and then make sure we wrap up the rest of the items to obtain that final occupancy permit. Generator was plumbed and hooked up to electrical today. We have to verify some information with consumers on the gas meter related to the pressure going into that machine tomorrow, and then should be ready to fire up. Gas lines are hooked up. Electrical, I think, is pretty much there. So it was delivered last Friday morning. And so they started working on it and did most of the work today. What else? There's still a list of punch list items that you have a receipt of. Jay and I walked through the building again today to try and give you the most updated list. If it's the version that has some chicken scratch and Jay's handwriting on it, that's what him and I did this afternoon. Most of the punch list items I would say are related to finishing. There's some finished detail type items, seals around door jams, doors opening and closing, make sure it's smooth, some drywall repairs, some painting. Most of the cosmetic damage to some of the steel, that's all wrapped up, like dents and stuff like that. Any main things I'm missing? Okay. And then from a construction standpoint, just really the items that I listed, those are the main ticket items. Dumpster enclosure still got to go in. It actually, the parts or the pieces have arrived, so we're working on getting that installed. I got the sensor submittal for the wash tank last week. There's a couple things I want to verify before they go ahead and install that to make sure it meets Jay's needs. But that should be in the next couple weeks from an installation standpoint. Grass is growing. Starting to see that Hoffman did a couple repairs last week because the storm we got kind of washed out some of the grass. So you'll see a couple like mulch blankets that they put down to make sure that grass establishes. So it's growing good. And that's kind of where we're at.
Quick question. I remember when I did the tour, the HVAC system had that condensation. We haven't had any issues since that one time.
There was one other time, but it's mostly like if the doors get all opened to the building and that machine starts running and hot air gets in is when you start seeing condensation. So doors have been closed. We haven't seen an issue. They had the doors open today, but Jay turned the machine off, or turned the AC unit off. Really been the main key component. Is if all the doors get open to the building, if they're bringing stuff in, you know, it's like opening your fridge, right? And see that condensation just build up on that cool air coming off.
I just wanted to check to make sure that there wasn't a systemic issue that going forward.
It doesn't appear to be. No, it's if you keep the building closed and doors closed like they normally should be, we haven't seen a problem. So that would probably fall under Morton's building warranty related to the structure, which I think I provided in the past. It'd be one of their subs. I'm sure the unit itself probably has a warranty as well. But yeah, so I think that falls under Morton's general construction warranty that they have, and I don't know if that's included in this packet, and I didn't bring it with me, but for some reason I want to say 12 months, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
So just so I'm clear, are you talking about the condensation that was leaking into a light fixture?
Ceiling tile, light fixtures, yeah, there was.
Whole place was sweating like crazy.
Yeah, it created a bit of damage, so.
It built up on the
Ceiling tiles.
oh gosh, why am I blanking? The ductwork. Yeah, the ductwork, it got condensation on the outside of it and you could see it dripped. So there's a couple items. They've swapped out most of the panels that had damage, because they're like this.
Yeah.
There's a few other items, like the one's got paint on them. Most of the channeling that was dented, that's been repaired. There's still a couple spots they got to wrap up. But my intent is countertops went in today, plumbing's getting wrapped up, and then we're pretty much done on any of the big ticket items, right? So appliances will be in. Appliances were delivered late last week, all of them. So those get all finished up, the floor is sealed, then we can really start making sure all this stuff's done. Because like you go in there today, because the countertop guys are moving stuff in there, right? You know, they're working on it. So get all them wrapped up, and then we can work with Morton and their subcontractor, their prime sub, to really knock off these items. Because I want it done.
So I apologize, just one quick question on so these ducts are inside the conditioned space. They're not in the attic, correct?
Well, they're in would that be called the plenum space? So it's the place between the roof. So in the office side of the building, right? You have your ceiling tile, and then you have all your mechanicals, your ductwork, fire suppression, electrical, water, right? A lot of that's in the ceiling. And then you have your roof, right? So I think that's the plenum space.
So I'm just asking whether it's conditioned space or unconditioned space.
I think that would be classified as unconditioned, because we don't have, like, there's no air conditioner units going, we don't have a port blowing up into the plenum space, right?
Right, and the reason I ask is because I have air conditioning and I run the ducts through my attic,
Mhm.
which is, 90% humidity or whatever we have in Michigan. And I don't get any condensation because they're insulated. So I'm just trying to understand, is this a problem, or is it just to your point, because the conditioned space was very humid, you're getting condensation from uninsulated ducts?
It doesn't appear to be systemic. Like I said, the only times we've seen it is when they first fired it on and they had all the doors and everything opened up, and it was working hard to try and cool that space, and you could see the condensation build up. And then I believe there was one other time and all the doors were open and they were hauling stuff in, and you could start to see it on the intake for the furnace, right? Because you can see it. You can see the water start to build up. So I haven't seen it any other times.
No, I talked to them 2 or 3 times. What they're saying, yeah, when all the front and back doors of the office area are open, it shut off. Only humidity. That's, when you shut the doors, it's gonna.
Because now it's pulling air in from the outside, just humid and hot. And
I asked about what's that. Leaking though. That's the HVAC. They said it's not HVAC. I'm just.
Well, again, it depends if it's in the conditioned space or not. Okay, so it's probably considered conditioned space.
so below the upper insulation. Okay, so it's below the, let's see, yeah, so it's be conditioned at that point, right? I'm trying to recall, when I saw it, I mean, those ducts run basically right above the ceiling tile.
You have a question?
To make a comment,
Sure.
I've been exposed to large buildings and the concrete put in, when the concrete's put in, that concrete's gonna cure for a month. And Aaron probably should know this. There's moisture coming out of that concrete for a long time, so even the weather had something to do with it too. But now that the concrete's been in there for a month or so, that moisture is not gonna continue to come out of the concrete. So you've seen this happen. I seen the same thing happen. I had to replace a whole ceiling because of the condensation, and that moisture comes out of the concrete. It's just a natural thing that happens. So I think that your worries about things happening down the road are probably over at this point in time. We've had horrendous rains, we got a lot of humidity, but I can't see where this is gonna go on at all.
It was that first day they fired it up. I mean, it was 95 degrees outside. It was like the worst day to fire it up. It was a losing battle for that machine that first day.
Always a lot of moisture that comes out of concrete, not just the first day. It comes out for 2 or 3 weeks for that concrete to cure. So I think you're seeing moisture. It's probably over with now, especially with it being there. It's done, you know.
You mentioned that you received a temporary certificate of occupancy.
Correct.
What does that cover?
The whole building.
What time frame? What were you looking at?
It's valid for 20 days.
20 days.
So we have in 20 days to finish these items is how Frank wrote it up. I don't see any issues with us getting the final list of items completed. Like I said, the main one is the generator, right? And the sinks is really the 2 main tickets.
So the temporary is just for the construction side of things only.
No, so I mean, a temporary occupancy permit, you could go occupy that building today as.
Because what I'm leading up to for the board is we're here to consider a conditional occupancy permit within the bill of sale. So we have a temporary, we have the conditional. When are we going to get to a final certificate of occupancy? Or
Well, I
is
have
there
to
a
have it.
process for
I have to have it within 20 days, right? So my expectation is if that generator is installed and we inspect the sinks tomorrow, which the inspector's coming out again, then, we should have that we won't have it this week because not to get on the Carl thing, but we can only get it till Wednesday, right? So my expectation is we have most of this, all this stuff wrapped up by next week, so we can get that final permit and Frank can sign off on it. Now, there's still the punch list items, which are the
I
cosmetic stuff.
understand that, but you mentioned your terminology is temporary.
Well, that's what it's defined as, right? If you look at it, it's defined as a temporary and then it has conditions on it.
Yeah, we're looking at a bill of sale document for the board consideration this evening that says conditional occupancy permit, which will require signatures. So my question was, when do we get to something that says, hey, this is just a certificate of occupancy is what I want to.
So just what part of the bill of sale are you speaking to?
Township Fire Station bill of sale and transfer agreement, paragraph number 4. It's the third whereas. Is anticipated that the township building inspector will grant a conditional occupancy permit for the property on or around July 22nd of 2025.
Which is what the inspector has given.
Yeah, so if my understanding of this agreement and the difference between a temporary and a conditional occupancy permit is they're the same, right? The temporary occupancy permit has conditions attached to it, right? We are granting you this temporary occupancy permit for you to occupy the building, conditional on you getting your final inspections done, which are the items I listed. And my schedule and intent is to have those items knocked out in the next week, right? Because there's just not many of them. It's the generator is the main thing holding us up, and the countertops. Because we couldn't get the sinks installed until the countertops arrived, which was today.
And once we get this signed, the clock starts ticking then for Jay to get all his stuff over into. I just want to make sure I understand that correctly as well.
Interpret this somewhere differently. There's one thing you're voting on tonight, which is this resolution.
Correct.
Right? This resolution is granting authority to Dave to sign the bill of sale. And then Jay's moving out of the new fire station is conditional on 2 items, right? It's the signing of the bill of sale, right? And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. It's the second to last paragraph on the bill of sale document. So the grantee agrees that upon granting of the conditional occupancy permit referenced by the township building inspector with installation of the generator on or before July 28th, 2025, the grantee, the township, will vacate the existing fire station, turn over possession of the existing station to the grantor, MEDA, and will provide a written notice from the grantee's fire chief that the existing fire station has been vacated, meaning that he's out and we can do what we need to do.
So by July 28th is what we're saying, that he's out. Is that correct?
No, that the generator is fully installed by July 28th.
Okay, so I guess my question is, how fast does he have to get out of that fire station?
It doesn't list a time frame. My request or MEDA's request is that
Sooner than later,
you
yeah,
do it
I know.
expeditiously, right? And so Jay and I have been discussions. I mean, he thinks it's going to be a couple days to move out his stuff. I think most of the items have been shifted over to the other fire station that could be easily transported. So there isn't a whole lot of equipment in that building as far as I'm aware, but there isn't a date, right?
I just, I'm just trying to make sense of it. I want to make sure it makes sense. Like, I understand, like, we have these conditional things and we have to follow things, but I want to make sure it makes sense also for our fire chief, and that. So I'm looking to you for guidance and where you're at on that too.
As long as we list, Aaron, will you stay with us on this list until we're done, 100%?
I'm not going anywhere.
I don't have a lot of beta contact, I do, but the best thoughts from Aaron. So,
Yeah.
We're gonna need a couple days to move out. Say 48 hours at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we discussed. Like none of that's.
I don't want you to be painted in a corner in case there's a major accident or a major fire on that, in that time frame. So.
Yeah, that shouldn't affect anything. I mean, here to there. The equipment off.
I'm just saying, like, if there's an emergency and not your crew is all out there,
Yeah.
you're trying to move stuff.
When they come back, they'll just come back to the other side.
Just put the garage door openers in the driver's seat. Yeah, I mean,
Speaking of that. I just thought of that.
seriously.
I don't have-
Yeah, I don't know. They're not in my truck.
You don't have-
No, okay, I don't have them. I know that the button is on the inside. Yeah, Mick.
Okay,
I'm
also,
sure they're there.
I still haven't gotten a good feeling on temporary and conditional and final, but that's up for the board to discuss. On your exhibit C1, item number 4, snow stops on the west side building entrance overhang.
Yeah, we actually got a note. I don't know if you saw that, Jay. I don't have the email pulled up, but Morton's saying they can't do it. It's based on the design of those overhangs, and I think how they're designed, and they're designed for snow to come off, right, if they accumulate. So if you put that snow stop there, I think is what he was saying, and snow accumulates, then you could potentially damage the overhang. So we're talking about the small ones.
Okay, after further review, Morton cannot put snow bars on the eyebrows. They are not designed to carry the extra load. And with the steel pitch of the eyebrow, snow will not build up on them. Let me know if you have any more questions. I just got this back from Bill. What you're talking about is the eyebrows that ones over the doors. I think same color, so everybody knows the little overhangs that are over the door.
On the east side of the building.
Correct.
Yes, yeah.
So there's one on the west and there's one on the east too.
They're saying that,
Because your C1 mentions west, but there's also one on the east. And that's what,
Yep.
when I did my walk around with Jay. So,
Yeah, so what they're saying is based on the pitch, if their snow gets on them, they're steep enough that it continually should fall off. But they're not designed to hold a snow load.
Do we have some snow stops on?
everywhere but those 3.
On the big ones you do.
It's not just the little eyebrow above
Right, because
Yeah.
the nature of a steel roof is the snow will slide off.
Move. Yeah.
If it slides off all at once, it's an avalanche.
I mean, this must be Morton's design methodology. I don't know. That's what their statement is.
I had a question, I'm not sure if it got answered earlier today or not, but there's wording in here about an escrow account. $10,000 escrow account. It's on top of page 2. If we understand that section.
I do. Sort of. They are going to, made upon execution of this, will deposit $10,000 with Chicago Title Company. That will be held in escrow to assure that the punch list items are completed. If they are not completed, we will have the option to have them done and take the money out of the escrow account. If there's any money left in the escrow account, then we refund the balance to them. If they owe us more money, we will get more money in the escrow account.
Okay, so that last,
It's not even anticipated that they're gonna need to use it, but
Like an insurance essentially to say, no, we mean that we're gonna get these things done.
yeah,
And here's a pot of money.
here's a pot of, just to guarantee we are.
Right.
And if not, then if you want to,
You can march
you
ahead
can march ahead and pay for it out of this.
this pot.
And if you need more money, they have 5 business days to pony up.
So it makes sure it gets, not just it gets done,
Yeah,
but it
it's
gets done in a timely manner.
It's really aside from the word, it's also the money to get the punch list done.
And just for awareness, I told Jay this earlier. like Maida hasn't fully paid Morton. I think there's still over $1 million outstanding in their contract amount. So it's not like they've been fully paid and are gonna finish this when they finish this, right? I mean, we have a fair amount of leverage related to final payments to get this stuff done, right? So not a problem.
So the other question or actually input I had was on, I think it's pretty much the last paragraph before the signatures. Grantee grants to grantor a right of access to access the existing township hall to disconnect any utilities between the existing fire station and the existing township hall prior to demolition of the existing fire station. I would like to add wording that is something like the disconnect of all utilities will be done with the grantee contractors where the grantee deems critical and will be paid by the grantor. The removal of the old fire department antenna and cabling will be part of the disconnecting actions. To me, this was just, it was a little too nebulous of how, and I mean, I know we've talked about it, but this is a contract, right? So, so for example, we have an alarm, I think I sent you a note, I didn't know we had an alarm system that extended to the fire station.
I know, because we talked about an alarm system for the new building, so
Right.
I'm surprised you had one over here, to be
Right.
honest.
So it's connected to this building, and when we had that lightning strike, apparently the alarm went off and the police came and they didn't know who to contact. And so my point being, that is something that we would want the alarm company to disconnect.
So I've called, what's his name, Craig?
Right.
Craig with Ultronics, started that conversation so he can do at least I don't know if it's unplugging a wire or how that feeds. I know it feeds through the conduit between the two buildings,
Right.
but whatever that coordination is, right? I've started that conversation. The other items, I guess, what would you deem as critical?
Well, we got phone, we have electrical, obviously. I don't know if there's a gas line or not. I don't know if that's separate or
Yep.
not.
It feeds it because you only have 1 meter for this property, so it feeds off of your.
So in terms of our, I think what's important to us is going to be things like our internet service, right? We don't really want to end up with a surprise because somebody disconnects it.
No, I mean, all the disconnections that we're doing are in your room, right?
Right.
It's not like we're disconnecting anything from the provider. Water, you won't lose service. The plans that we have show 2 wells out front. The plans show that both feed this building and both feed that building. So we've already started the process of trying to make sure we have the correct well records and cap the wells at the well, not like down there, right? We want to, everything that our Maida's demo contractor has been tasked with doing is to disconnect from this facility, not at that facility, right? Because I don't want to leave lines running between the 2 buildings.
Right.
The antenna, that's part of their scope to take out, so it's gonna get removed.
So all I was asking is the bill doesn't speak to that. It just says access to the building to disconnect. It doesn't really give the detail that I was looking for to make sure that that certain things get done correctly. So to your point, if Ultronics does it, the work, that's great, right? Because they're our supplier of our alarm system.
Sure.
But if Joe Schmo does it and he screws it up, then we've got a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I know Eric with 21st Century, he's been in this building, he's looked at your utility closet, he's been coordinating with the various subs that he's gonna have, electricians. a contractor who does gas connections, right? I think he's using CATS on the wells, who's done all the disconnects in this area on behalf of 21st Century. So I know he's working with reliable and reputable subs. He's done his homework and due diligence. I mean, they have a plan. So we've developed a demo plan that he prices his demolition off of. And it explicitly states on those plans that he shall remove all utilities up to the existing building. The tower needs to go to, and that's what our MADA's contract says with them, that they have to do these things. So,
I'm just asking to have that wording added so that it's not open to interpretation. That's my suggestion.
Is there like a punch list like that? That kind of itemizes it, just like we have a punch list here, but just like, is there a list somewhere like that too?
So for demo, we go off of quantities. So he has quantities that he has to remove. So like square footage of building, amount of asphalt, utilities are all identified. So it's not really a punch list as it is like it's a quantities list is what he prices everything off of.
So in my mind, I'm thinking through this and I'm thinking we got connections in here, but then you have a conduit that runs out through the building.
So he's gonna disconnect it at the building. That's his direction. We're not taking conduit from underneath your floor slab, but when you hit your footing, he's gonna disconnect it from there outwards and then have to restore whatever is damaged, right? He's gonna have to dig them up, basically. So he's got to restore topsoil it, seed it, grass it. No different than the work that's been done in front.
Okay, but then what happens in here?
So, I mean, ideally, it doesn't look like we've done anything, right? It should look exactly the same.
Well, the wires have to be disconnected, right?
Cut and capped or however they're wired. I haven't looked at it personally, so.
Well, yeah, I think that's the question is, what is it? I mean, contractors tend to take the shortest route possible, and it may or may not be good for the township. Right?
My intent as the PM overseeing their work is that you don't notice that it looks like they did anything.
Probably pull the wires out of the conduit.
They'll pull it from there, but I don't want the conduits going between the buildings.
Right.
Left.
They'll pull it from here out.
Yeah, probably. Like I don't know.
Well, I guess that's the question. I thought you said they weren't going to. So there's conduit. I know at least there's electrical, there's internet, and there's the alarm system, and there's a phone. I don't know if they're all in one big pipe or in there.
The plans show, it's not very specific, but it shows those communication lines as a conduit running between the two buildings. And it's right next to where the gas and the electric lines are. So they look like they're all in like the same bank. My guess is if they built it, they probably trenched it all in one trench. And
so they're going to dig down, they're going to cut it. They're going to terminate those so that they're closed.
Yeah. Yep.
But then they're going to pull the wires one way or the other. They're going to pull those wires out.
Correct. That's my intent. Yeah, we got to disconnect it at the panel. I mean, I don't know if there's a panel in there or not for
But you said something about just cutting and capping.
Well, they're gonna cut the wires, they're gonna pull them, and then they would cap the conduits at the building.
Gotcha. Okay, that was my question. So I would just add the wording to make it clear that that's what we're gonna do and specifically what's gonna be done. The topic was brought up, and it's not germane to probably the long term, to the short term. However, Seth coaches drafted, and I left a copy for everybody on their place. It specifically talks about the ongoing costs of operation. So I think, it didn't appear, been watching this thing since the beginning. It didn't appear that anybody took into account the additional costs, ongoing costs for this fire station. Somehow magically a 4 million, almost a $4 million fire station wasn't gonna cost us anything more. But we're gonna see increased cost insurance almost for sure, because it's a roughly a $4 million building. And I believe the insurance guy told us it's replacement cost. We got a water bill that we didn't have. We got a phone bill if you're gonna have a phone. I don't know if that's still in the works or not. We have this holding tank, which this document from our legal team specifically talks about. We have the fire alarm and sprinkler system, which is, best I can tell, is way more expensive than what we're paying Altronics right now. And I asked for architects' requirements, and I still haven't seen anything on why that was required.
The alarm system or the suppression system itself?
Both. The day I took my tour, I asked that question and I was told that I would be given that. Because the question is, what's driving these things? We don't have a fire suppression system, to my knowledge, in any of our buildings, but definitely not in our fire hall. So what drove that? And then specifically the alarm system is quite expensive, as I recall. I'm thinking it's $300 a month or something compared to, we pay $90, I think, here. Obviously a larger heating and cooling bill. We've got another generator now, so we've got, a whole nother generator to service. So, these are things that people brought up. These are things that should have been thought about when the person that brought this to the board unexpectedly, after working on it for months, without the board's knowledge of what was going on, should have thought about that. And the fire board should have been made aware of these added costs. But specifically, Seth has put this resolution in front of the board. I don't know if we want to take action on it today. But it speaks to specifically the tank, and the process that was used, by, Meta. So again, I bring this forward just because he brought it forward to me. So I don't know, do you have Jay, do we have an estimate of what we think our increased monthly costs are gonna be? What's the alarm system? So 200.
Some of that is, we can make predictions about costs, but we won't know until we've had it for a year. And that's something I know the fire board has talked a little bit about, is it's just one of those things. It's like, once we know that, we'll be able to see what the differences are, but it's kind of hard to predict until we've kind of lived in it.
So would you build a giant 10,000 square foot house and then figure out that you couldn't pay the heating bill?
I would agree that was not the decision that this board made. That was prior board that made the decision, and that was what they chose and what they thought was best at the time. I probably would have made that same decision, but I think at this point, there's not a lot of leverage based off of the contracts that have been already signed. But it is something that I think the fire board is saying we need to get a grapple of what those expenses are going to be, so that we can make a good prediction in our budgeting of how to do that year in and year out. So,
Yeah, we did talk a little bit about it at budget time. And I stated at the time that we are going to have separate accounts within the fire department, but it'll be separate accounts so that we can track those expenses and base them on something rather than grabbing them out of the air.
Again, the attorneys have suggested that the board review their letter to Richard Lindsay, attorney, Marshall Area Economic Development Alliance. So that's there for your review and any action. I think essentially it's pushing back on the holding tank in particular, because that wasn't foreseen in the site plan at all. And it looks like it'll be a substantial cost to the township.
I do think it is a systemic issue in what you're saying of, we did this thing and now we told you about it and you have to figure out what to do, which is, you know, we could argue with the water franchise agreement in the sense of that line coming down Verona Road. They built it and now we have to figure out that versus figuring that stuff out first and then doing it. Same with the holding tank. It was done first. And then it's like, well, figure this out, you have this cost. So I see why, I mean, that pattern is a concerning pattern.
Again, the letter speaks to the violation of, you know, basically not providing the planning commission with documents showing this holding tank. It wasn't done properly, and we found out later, actually, I think we found out kind of the hard way, because I think originally there was going to be a 30,000 gallon tank because there was going to be a well, and then we found out all of a sudden we're going to get a 3,000 gallon tank that we have to empty. I think Mr. Lindsay said potentially once a month. And I don't know what's the cost of emptying that tank.
Yeah, who we're gonna use, I do not have an exact, did check Midwest funds. I emailed them what they pay to have theirs pumped out, I can pull that email. So much per gallon.
And it has a gauge, right? Like there's a gauge that tells us when it's full.
We talked about a little bit ago that it's not installed yet, but yes, it will have.
Right. Then just a quick question, is this, in terms of this letter from about this violation and stuff like that, how does that, I'm trying to understand and make sense of, like, how does that then fit into our decision today about the conditional thing? If you
Right, well, I think it's pushing back a bit on the fact that the holding tank wasn't handled properly, and there could have been a civil infraction, you know, could have been a civil infraction assigned, and you know, it's pushing back on it because it's an ongoing cost over and beyond kind of normal, you know, the other things that I mentioned. And it was done improperly. So I think Seth in particular and Rob Thal thought it was appropriate for the township to push back on those costs that really weren't handled properly in terms of a site plan and approval. So
would that be, so I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to make sense. Is it with what they're proposing here, are they saying we don't sign and we push this forward? Or because I'm just making sure, like, this feels like a separate thing slightly. And I'm just trying to make sure I understand how it connects to the bill of sale, or, yeah.
it's separate from the standpoint of, it's a separate topic related to the same building. If that makes sense. In other words, we're gonna take possession of this building, but we have these kind of unresolved cost issues, and one that, again, is very specific that no one anticipated, I'm guessing. And so it, in my mind, that's the tie, is that this is something that the cost that we're going to incur because this holding tank was put in, but it wasn't, the way it was handled wasn't proper. Now, what the remedy is part of probably the message to Meta is, is there a remedy?
Part of me wonders, like, I think we could move forward with the bill of sale if, as long as Jay's feeling good about it, Dave, but you have to sign it. So I'm curious your thoughts on those things as well. But I think that you could still pursue this other issue of just saying, hey, Meta, like, this is, we noticed through this process that this was something, and we're not just not addressing it either. But I just wondered, I think it feels to me, maybe it's slightly, yes, it's the same building, but I'm saying, even if we approve the bill of sale, it doesn't mean we're not going to address this, which I think is something that would be worth.
It may come back to leverage. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so.
Yeah, I hear you. Curious, Dave, it would be your signature, so I'm curious your thoughts on things.
Well, I think, this whole process is moving forward. I mean, it's a new fire station and there's things that we may not like, but there's good things in the fire station. I think our firemen are pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be an asset to us. I know, and there may be some cost savings just on, lights, on electrical. A lot of times the new lights are less expensive to run than I see it myself in our business. You put in new lights and your electric bill goes down. So I don't know. I don't know about the holding tank. I know that where Midwest Bus is, that was put in by Avery's and they were hauling it out. I don't know how big that is. And I guess we're gonna have to wait and see on some of these and keep it. But I'm in favor of signing the fire station bill of sale.
Jay, would you feel comfortable with this board signing? I want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I'm fine with it moving forward. Like I said, I'm gonna have Aaron to stand behind to make sure our list gets done and everything that they are promising to do gets done. I guess if it didn't get done, I guess that's where that money comes into play. But I have a feeling everything that was right out of this whole time, they will take care of it.
I agree with that.
He's been a huge help. That's kind of been my go-to most of the time. And to follow through on everything so far. But I see no reason he would.
Right.
You don't have tickets to go anywhere tomorrow, do you?
It's going to Bahamas, yeah. He's like,
Our city for 1 week and that was a struggle.
So I guess I talked about it. I guess I'll make a formal motion that we add language to the last paragraph that says the disconnect of all utilities will be done with the grantee contractors where the grantee deems critical. All will be paid by the grantor, which this doesn't speak to who pays for anything. The removal of the old fire department antenna and cabling will be part of the disconnect actions.
So my only comment to that, Glenn, is just what are you defining as critical? And then I'm the only one here representing Meta in this discussion, but I don't think you would find someone that's very expensive to do this, but we have a budget to demolish that building and that's what's been established. And if you're now adding extra cost without.
I don't know that it would add any cost. What I'm trying to do is protect the township from something not being done correctly. And And it doesn't say anything about who's gonna pay for it, to my knowledge.
I think you said that the MEDA in your sentence would reimburse or pay for those costs if you hired a contractor to do something.
That's what I'm asking to add, yes.
I guess why would MEDA do that?
Why would they pay for
Why would they
disconnecting?
agree to contract language with, like, if we're responsible.
Why would we agree to accept this, bill of sale?
Really, Maine has already agreed to disconnect this stuff, right?
Yeah, we have work with 21st Century to do these
Right.
disconnects.
But it's one sentence. It just says it grants a right of access to access existing township hall to disconnect any utilities between existing fire station and existing township hall prior to demolition. That's it. That's all it said.
Says that disruption to existing utilities to the town hall shall not be interrupted as part of this process. Is that what you're looking to protect?
No, I'm trying to protect how the disconnection and the capping takes place. So specifically, the areas that I'm concerned about are probably the internet, the phone line, and the alarm systems, because we've had problems with those. And I don't know who the contractor might employ to do those are. And I'm just saying. that
Right, so
I
if
think those
you add language that the existing, if those services shall not be interrupted as part of this disconnect that has to be done, then does that protect the township?
Well, that doesn't mean just because they're not interrupted doesn't mean it was done right. It just means it wasn't interrupted.
What are
I
you,
can snip the cables on the internet over to the hall, and it wouldn't necessarily interrupt the building internet here.
Well, they have a demo permit with the township, right? So that demo permit includes the disconnection of these utilities. So there is oversight by Frank. I think Frank is the one who signs those permits. So there is a plan that was submitted, I believe, or a document. I'm not 100% up to speed on it, but there is a document that was submitted and approved. Well, I think it's going to get approved tomorrow, but that will be approved by Frank as part of the demo permit to tear down that structure. Now, those disconnects are part of that. Usually, if it was public utilities, we would have to provide documentation that shows that consumer has signed off on, or AT&T or whomever, Consumers Gas, right? Those are the two big ones, that they've signed off and done those disconnects properly. And we have to include those as part of the demo, permit package. So for Frank to approve that, you have to have those documents. So, the township has a level of oversight through the demo permit that would be issued for this project.
So anyways, I've said my piece. If the board is happy with the document the way it is and Dave wants to sign it, then go for it. I'd like to see that change made. All I'm gonna say about it.
I think you just clarified question I was gonna have. Yes, the demo permit application does include the reference to the capping of or the elimination, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, they can't just like cut an electrical wire and then
Elimination
you got a
of the-
live wire, right? I
And
mean,
so
it's not,
our inspectors that work will have to be done in accordance with our inspectors.
right, which I believe is Frank. It's
And we have your word that you'll continue to coordinate closely. If we have our IT guy wants to be here, and in fact, I would encourage that.
Sure.
That he be here when that be done, so that he can make sure things are done in accordance with what he wants.
If there are people that you want involved in the process, like I called Craig, right? If there are people you want involved here, like, let me know, and I will make sure that we are coordinated properly and Eric is aware of it. And, if I gotta stand here and watch them, then that's what I gotta do.
And I'm satisfied with that, because I just hate to You know, if there's an obvious error at spelling or something, that's one thing, but I hate to tinker with what the attorney's done.
And I think I like hearing that, you know, like it is our inspectors who we trust to go out into the township to do inspections that are kind of overseeing that work as well. So they're not gonna sign off on something that they don't think is done right.
Well, and it's a safety issue too, right?
Right.
You're not gonna start tearing a building down with active gas or water or whatever else is going in there, right?
Questions, I'd like to call for the question on the resolution.
Okay. Ready for a roll call vote?
Trustee Wright,
Yes.
Supervisor Bazey,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski,
No.
Trustee Woods,
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no.
All right. Okay. I'll move on to number 3.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Between Marshall Township and Carl Fowler regarding the office manager services and updated job description attached as reviewed by the township attorney.
Where to begin? So I think there's a lot of comments on the public comment regarding this, so I wanna just briefly, because I know a lot of people weren't able to be here on the special meeting, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the things there. But I also want to talk about like why Carl, like what is we've even seen another job application for the position. And so just like what do we see in value with having Carl here versus what someone else doesn't have? First off, if we take a look at the job description. Here. A long way. Here it is. There we go. Okay. So some of the things that we had outlined in the previous, just to kind of make it more clear, is that there was multiple reporting people that Carl would report to. This job description specifies it down to that Carl takes directives from one person, not that we can't talk to him in other capacities. But in terms of being able to get tasks or things to be tasked with, it takes some direction from the clerk, and when the clerk is absent, the township supervisor. There is the work. So why the agreement? So that's a question as well. The agreement gives both Carl and the township something to be able to fall back on. I look at by having an agreement, it gives the township something to say, like, this is what we want him to do, but it's also what he is agreeing to. We, prior to this, did not have any signed agreement. There was no signed agreement that Carl took the job description and had any say or any input onto those things. Just like a contract with any individual person in the real world, you would you go through and say, this is what the expectations are within this. You sign and you agree it on those things. And we don't have anything like that. We had some things that there was an agreement, there was a board approval, but there was no signed document. This, by having a document like this, it allows us to be able to say, this is what Carl has agreed to, and that we can hold him to those things that he has signed in writing. So those are some things to take into consideration of why we went with an agreement, because I think it helps protect the township. As we've seen in the past, when people just leave without it, it allows, there's some protection there so that there could be handover if someone decides to resign. It gives it so that the township is not in the lurch. The value of the office manager, by the way, he isn't just managing himself. I will point out, he does assist in doing the permit officer. So he handles payroll and handles those things in payroll voucher systems and when it comes to our inspectors. So there is some role where he's involved with the issuance of permits and coordinating to make sure that inspectors are going to these sites and actually inspecting them. So there is some things there. This job description has been updated. We've taken input from several different people. We talked to planning commission members about their concerns about the processing of public notices, which is in here under the second to last bullet point. It says to assist with the processing of public notices, meeting notices and agenda, and to assist with getting these artifacts posted to the township website. So in those township notices, that does include like notifying residents in the proximity of a zoning ordinance change as well. So that is included there, that we wanted to make sure that hole was being filled. It also took into consideration we had approved the MailChimp as a mass notification system that would be available for residents to be able to get this. This is something new that the township has not had before, but we added language in there that under 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th bullet point, sixth bullet point, to assist with the mass notification system. So while the survey would be designed by, let's say, the planning commission or whoever the board, if the board decides to do that, Carl would help in initiating and making sure that those notifications go out, as well as when there's updates to the township website about when notices get posted on there, as well as things. So Carl would be assisting in those things as well. Let's see, other things in here, off my head. We did change the agreement language. I did not change it, but I think it was Seth the one that changed it, Jeff, to remove appendix F, I think was mentioned in there. And so that language was removed because there, to my knowledge, not that I was aware of an appendix F. The language was connecting what the job description in terms of who they report to, that reporting structure was also then mirrored into that. The additional language that Seth had proposed that we had at the special meeting that was not in the original agreement was added to that to include that. And so we saw that those things were added to that agreement. I talked to Carl about those things. Oh, by the way, we did get also observes and reports to the township clerk hall about the hall and ground maintenance, and gets quotes when requested. So one of the other things that was brought up at that meeting was to make sure that when things are kind of falling apart, that they get reported to the clerk. The clerk can then initiate getting Carl to assist in getting some quotes for the work that would be done there. So there was a number of different things that were added there. We also previously, as I had mentioned before, the receive and receipt all tax monies at the counter electronically and mail, ensure that the property tax bill bottom stub is collected and or printed for each tax payment collected and placed in the payment in the safe. And so that was by what Glenn had put in a while ago. I know he's added some things today to specify that more, but that was put in there to make sure that those monies were being collected and that they were going to be put in-house in that space as well. So kind of giving that summary. why that is. So the one other thing I wanted to bring up is why Carl? Why do we see value in having someone like Carl versus just a different person that has been an office manager? When a resident, and I have talked to other residents about this, and this is the value that I think that Carl has brought to this position is when someone comes in with a question that's going to be about permitting, anything about zoning, he's able to look over their application and can see like, oh no, this isn't going to work because of these setbacks. He's able to look over the documents before they go to SEMCCI. Because Carl is a zoning administrator for several surrounding municipalities around us as well. And as part of the reason why Carl cannot work on Thursdays is because he's also working on in other municipalities in order to have a take-home pay that provides for his family. So that expertise, so we're not only just paying to do an office manager position, but it's this expertise that he provides. Another office manager would just be able to say, well, I'll forward this to SEMCCI, and someone could be putting it, be providing something that wasn't complete or wasn't not correct. And that office manager would not know because they don't know the zoning things and hasn't been trained in zoning in those ways. And so there would be a number of back and forth before they would be able to get and resolve their questions. And we have seen that in the past when our offices were closed because there was no one here. Several people in this room complained about how the township was not open, that people couldn't come in and ask questions or get answers to their questions. That business basically stopped in terms of permitting. And so this is why I think it's been kind of an important thing for this township is that we don't want to be caught in that lurch. We want our residents to be able to have someone at that window that can answer those questions when they come in with those things.
And with some permits, I mean, he checks to see if it meets the zoning and then he can go ahead and give them the permit to do their building. And if it's going to require more than that or any zoning, then it goes on to
MCCI. And that would have taken even longer for a person to be able to get their permitting within the township. And so that's why I know some of you are frustrated with it, but that's why the value that Carl has that not other people wouldn't necessarily have. At the time, that was when Paul Anderson was a zoning administrator.
Carl had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
So using that as an example, first of all, I've worked for several companies. I've never had a contract with that company. What I have done is I've accepted an offer of employment of a certain salary with a very broad description of the role. I've never had a contract. And we did have a contract with Paul Anderson. And if memory serves, it was meaningless, right?
But in other words,
He gave no notice. I don't know if we paid him. I don't know what the last board did. I don't know if they paid him for 2 months that he wasn't here. I haven't got a clue. But the contract didn't work for Paul Anderson. So I think the idea of a contract is way overblown. I think there's no doubt that I don't think anybody's ever said that Carl doesn't have value. I think I've said it more than once. I think the question becomes, and to answer Sandra's question, very early in this process, I brought to this board MTA surveys on salaries. Do you remember that? I brought all those copies to us. I think part of what we're talking about and what I'm hearing from the public is we're paying too much. And the reason we're paying too much is because the board approved 4 days of work and a salary based on 4 days per week. And then somehow somebody, whoever that somebody is, maybe it was the whole board, without any motions, allowed him to start working only 3 days.
Do we have evidence that he ever worked a Thursday?
I don't have any evidence.
So
All I have is a resolution that said 4
Resolution.
days.
So this is again why a contract is good. Because then someone can look over it and they sign their name saying that they
Well,
agree.
they
to
did.
those things.
Jeff Alba signed his name on that
Jeff Alba
resolution.
is not Carl Fowler.
I didn't sign his name to anything.
No, not his name. I didn't
You
say
said that.
No, I didn't
You just
say
did.
it. I said your name.
No, you didn't.
Well, you're gonna tell me what I said.
Either way, what I'm
You're
saying
trying to
is,
tell me what I said.
No, I'm not. I'm saying you signed it. It was a signed resolution.
all I was saying is, this allows Carl to be able to sign and say, yes, I'm agreeing to these things and I'm signing my name to this. When Mick and I went and talked to him, he said, it was never, and what I told them that I was able to do. It was never, Thursday was not an option, was a non-starter for him.
Okay,
He wouldn't
so,
have-
so the board, so again, a board would come back and say, oh, we made a mistake. So let's look at a 3-day work. What would a 3-day work week look like? Would it be the same salary?
Well, and I think in this
But they
case,
didn't
when I
do
talked to
that.
Carl, when Carl said, these are the conditions that I need, this would be what my salary was, I would need for my salary to be able to work this job, is what he said. He goes, this was the salary that I would need in order to work my job. These are the hours I'd be available. I'd be happy to do it if I was able to do it.
You're telling a great story. All I have is a resolution in 2023 that says he's gonna work 4 days a week.
And we don't have, and you're telling a great story too, that Carl knew it because we don't have a signed.
I didn't say that. I can assume that because I think it actually says in the document that Jeff talked to him about it.
And I think what we're trying to do is move forward from that.
Right, so let's talk about that. So,
Point of order first. We don't even have a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, motion to approve the Carl Fowler job description and tentative agreement.
Second,
I'll second.
moved in second. Now we'll open it up for discussion.
so, you know, I brought a resolution to the board to try and cut through some of this baloney and have a very specific job description so that everybody was clear on Carl's role relative to collecting tax monies, okay? It failed. So then we put this language in there, which you spoke to, okay? So we started collecting taxes, and in my mind, this was fairly clear, except, and I showed you today what I'm receiving, right? I'm receiving a pile of
I'll pull up the picture.
envelopes, various documents. And so I communicated with Carl. I just said basically that there was no receipt for the monies in the filing cabinet, which has always been the case. There's always been a receipt of monies, specifically for, you know, our permits and applications. Everyone, and when it comes to taxes, it was typically on a macro basis based on a daily receipt, because to make one out for each payment would be onerous. So as I went through the taxes and did the taxes the first day, none of the checks were stamped for deposit only. So I asked if he would do that, which is a normal process. Every check that I get from Carl that I deposit has that check, that stamp on it. The checks could be removed from the envelopes and attached with the check and the tax stub, right? So rather than an envelope that's unopened, open it up, make sure that the check stub is there. I'm sorry, the tax stub is there. Any payment that doesn't have a tax bill stub, print one so that it's available. So number one, we know that the payment is paid in full or not paid in full or overpaid. Each day's monies be receipted with a yellow copy attached to the day's collection. And then each day's record would be kept in a separate folder. In other words, if I didn't happen to get here every day, that I could post them as a daily set of checks, electronic payments, cash, all of which we received. Okay, so that was a request. And basically, I've included this. He says, I will receive and receipt at the window just as been done in the past and place them in the top drawer of the file cabinet, nothing more. Those requests you made are treasurer, deputy, treasurer duties. Okay, and you saw, I mean, I'm willing to show anybody what I received, a pile. I said, basically, to me, that is part of it, and I think that's what's spelled out here. The problem I think we're getting into is we're trying to get down to the granularity that's become absolutely ridiculous. But said, hey, you know, this is a critical function, receiving the monies. He said, I know the roles and responsibilities of each person involved. I was doing it before you were elected. So I said, I'm asking you to comply with these simple tasks that are done for monies received, all monies received. They are no different than a permit or other application payments, except in larger quantities. Past mistakes or errors are not my concern. My only concern is the handling of money coming into the township. I'm not sure why you're resisting these office managers' simple tasks. His final answer was, I don't take any direction from you. I'm doing it exactly as it's been done in the past, which isn't the case. I consider this an insubordination because currently he works for the clerk and the treasurer as of this moment in time. I consider this an insubordination. I don't deserve to be treated that way when I'm asking for very specific tasks that I think we've talked about ad nauseum and we've tried to delineate in this document, but I've made one more attempt. Which I included to try and delineate it down even another level of granularity. And I guess this board can decide whether they want to include that language or not. To me, it's very simple. We're not talking about giant tasks. We're talking about handling money properly and making it available so that it can be entered into BS&A, which this board decided they didn't want Carl to have to input the information into BS&A. I can do that. That's not a problem. I've actually streamlined the process dramatically. But I have to have the monies presented in a logical, organized manner. And I don't expect this kind of response from an employee. Now, we've been putting up with all the things that he's not going to do since the beginning of the year. But I haven't heard a lot of things about what he is going to do. If I was an employee, like I think many people said, I'd really, especially for the kind of money that we're currently paying, I would really try and make that employer happy. If it was me.
Can I ask a couple clarifying questions, Glenn? I just want to make sure I understand. In terms of how it's currently done in the safe, in terms of the things that are in the tax folder versus things not in the tax folder, are we suggesting that that thing gets put into like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday folders? Or I'm just saying, like, that seems different than what was in there before. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Like what are the?
I think it'd be helpful. Is it necessary? No, I think it'd be helpful. I mean, we're talking about a file, right? We're not talking about anything different. What's changed is the whole process is now completely disintegrated. There was no receipt. You saw the envelopes aren't open. I have no idea whether there's any tax stubs or not.
Did those envelopes come in the mail or did they get dropped off by a person? Do we know? I'm just curious.
Well, the ones I saw had stamps on them, so I assume they got sent.
So they came through the mail.
You and I had this conversation last Thursday. We discussed definitions of receipting. So somewhere there's a gulf between what I thought receipting was and what you need receipting to be or what it was prior to. So what is the receipting that you're looking at?
So in its simplest form, so for example, each permit payment or application, I get a check and I get a receipt, a yellow receipt, right? What I do is I tally those checks, right? I make a deposit. I connect those two together and I give them to Jeff to enter into the ledger. Their receipts, those receipts, are one of our measures of what money was brought in, what money was received. So in the case of taxes, because we get a number of checks or ACH transfers or cash, right? Some people they bring in wads of cash. The way it has been done all winter taxes is it was seated in aggregate. So Carl did is he ran a tape of all the checks he had taken in during that day, and he receipted that money. That's the money that was brought in by the office manager.
Through what system did he create that? How did he run the tally?
How did he add up the checks?
How was the tally at the end of the day? How was it?
Ran a tape on an adding machine.
Were those part of his duties as a assistant or a deputy treasurer?
No.
So,
Deputy treasurer takes my position when I'm not available.
I will note, and I will say that, to ease the chasm in this as well, I happen to know the deputy treasurer. But she is willing, if it is this chasm of what happens, she is willing to run the tape, and do that aspect if need be. So I'm just naming that as a thing. But yeah, I'm just, if it helps Glenn to be able to do his function, the deputy treasurer is willing to do that if it eases that as well. This is a note.
That's one item. That's one item out of all of them. So when you look at the time spent, if you're not opening envelopes and you're not understanding whether you've got a check, a bill stub or not, that's a first step, right?
Right.
You're looking at amounts, how much is received, right? Ultimately, we want the person who's receiving the money, I think, to tally it up and say, this is how much I received. So, and that's great, except I don't think you realize the volume of effort that's going to be. It's not a big effort, but it's a daily effort. We're going to get a stream. You saw what was in there today.
Yeah.
We're going to get a stream of that on a regular basis. There's the ebbs and tides, but it's something that someone who you pay 6.5 hours or whatever we decided we're paying him for would be perfect to do. And believe me, I don't know. I mean, we've gone through this, but what else are we gonna have him do? If he's not gonna do that, is we just gonna listen to the radio or what?
No, and I agree. I agree that, you know, in this document, it says ensure that property tax bill bottom stub is collected or printed. So like, I agree that that should be in there based off of what is here. So I'm not negating that, and those things that are missing would be underneath the job description like Carl would do.
But then when an envelope comes to the treasurer, is Carl, he doesn't usually open up my mail. So I don't know.
I think it actually said somewhere in here,
It does say receive and receipt all tax monies at the counter, electronically, and mail.
right?
So I think like that would be the only bit that would be difficult with that is it does say electronically, which would be the ACH, is that correct? Correct acronym, as well as the snail mail receiving those tax monies. So
So I wrote up exactly what I had expressed. Because apparently the paragraph that we all thought was perfectly clear was not clear enough. So I wrote up this proposal. We could just put this right into this document if you want. I think the question is the employee just going to continue to say no?
well, the goal is by getting him to sign this, that would be his way of saying yes to what he's doing, and that, you know, that this is what a negotiation looks like.
So would you like me to go through that or what? So basically it starts out with the same basic language: receive and receipt all tax monies at the counter, electronically, mail, drop box. Wanted to make sure I was thorough, or other. Ensure that the property tax bottom bill stub is collected or printed for each tax payment collected. Ensure each resident that requests the receipt receives one. Under that, stamp each check for deposit only, which is again a standard practice for every other check we receive that I've ever seen. All checks be removed from the envelopes and attached with the check and tax bill stub. Place any cash in a sealed envelope with the total clearly printed on the outside of the envelope, which again is typical of what Carl does. So that there isn't, sometimes there's loose coins and there's $1 bills and $100 bills. Any payment not having a bill stub, you print the bill and attach it, check with the stub, barcode facing up. Each day's monies collected be receipted and a yellow copy be attached to the day's accumulation. Okay, so that's the receiving of saying, okay, I took in $50,000 today, which is not untypical. This is the money I've received through all of these different avenues. Okay, and to get to that, the easiest way to do it is to run a tape, right? Yeah, you're adding the checks up, you run a tape. The tape shows everything, you get a total. And that's what you write your receipt out for. Okay, that's the way it was done all winter taxes. Each day's records above would be kept in separate folders and placed in the fireproof filing cabinet. And my reason for separating them is just that I know when they were receipted, right? So there's the documents, there's the yellow receipt, and it's in a folder. Okay, I'm not expecting to, let them pile up for weeks, but I may actually take a day off once in a while and go golfing or something.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding things too. Like the first one here says stamp each check for deposit only. Can you tell me more about like I want to hear more about that. Like, what
Sure,
does that
we could
do?
go on for hours about it.
No, I want to know, like, what is,
It's a stamp that says for
I know.
deposit only on the check.
right, but what is,
Deposit only.
but do
You
we,
can't go to the grocery store and buy groceries with it. It's for deposit only.
but wouldn't, I mean, any township thing be for deposit only anyways, correct?
Yeah, but the stamp protects,
Protects it
right?
from, okay.
It's like we have stamps for checks from
Okay.
deposit only.
And then, so that I would say is definitely not in that original list on there.
No, it was, again, I made the assumption because that's what we do on every other check
Check,
we receive. Every other check, and every check during the last tax season had that on it.
or
Every one. So I'm trying no longer to make any assumptions. I'm trying to be as clear as possible of what I think would be helpful for an office manager to do when he has plenty of time to do it, 3 days a week. I'm just trying to make it as clear as possible. But I'm not gonna accept any more communications like that. I don't deserve it. Dave, I sent you a note back on June 24th about a special meeting, and I think our law firm suggested that as well. I never heard anything back from you. I'm not gonna accept that kind of correspondence from an employee. I don't deserve it.
in your first bullet point, it says receive and receive all tax monies at the counter electronically mail, Dropbox or other. Ensure that the property tax bill bottom stub is collected or printed for each tax payment collected. Ensure each resident that requests a receipt receives one. So the word, going back to Mick on receipt, right? We're using, it sounds like that receipt seems different than, I guess I'm still struggling with the difference between those receipts and the tallying up.
So think of it this way. I think some residents come in and they have their tax bill and they are accepting of a date stamp, right? And
Yes, yep,
And then Carl gives them the top portion back with a date stamp.
correct.
Okay. Some are more insistent that they get a full receipt. Some, I had one guy come in, he was paying both his summer and his winter taxes on about 5 properties, and he wanted my signature on every one of them. Okay. But those are receipts to the people paying the money if they don't think their check is sufficient. So receiving on the other end though is we're receiving the money, right? We're receiving, the township is receiving the money. And again, I can only tell you what my role in that is to make sure that the money that's deposited is equal to that receipt, and then I give it to Jeff, and I assume he puts that in the ledger.
How do you receive ACHs?
Well, again, it's the same process. I guess I'm not sure of the question. It's instead of a check being deposited, it goes directly into our bank account.
So how do we keep track of, does that come into, so like when you say receipt in the township, is it only the payments that are coming in through the township that are being tracked? Or is it all monies that go through the township? Is a question.
Well, all monies have to be received. Guess I still don't understand the question.
No, well, I'm saying like, in terms of him tallying it up with the
So
ACH,
the AC, you might have ACH transfers that he has actually seen hit our account, right?
Right.
So he doesn't really receive it until it hits
That's what
our
I'm
bank
asking.
account,
Right.
right? Because it could be bogus, could be
Where
fraud,
does he see, where does he see those come in?
on his email.
So he's-
I'm just trying to understand the process from the beginning to the end
Sure.
and what steps there are.
Yeah, they come in an email form. He gets notified that one has been initiated,
This comes from the finance institution.
correct? And then he kind of keeps an eye on it, but he doesn't accept it until it hits our account. Now, but one of the things we've talked about is that we can't accept payments after March 1st. So we had an ACH come in and be accepted. And we don't want to do that. So we've actually offered up a plan, and Carl and I talked about it, and we decided to put it on hold, where we could avoid that, because there's this weekend, right? There's this Thursday through Monday where an ACH could slip through. We can change that process. But again, to try and work with Carl, I've said, okay, if you don't want to do it right now because you're uncomfortable with it, then we'll just stay the way it is. What happens if we get an overpayment, or we get a payment after March 1st, is that I take it and I give it to Jeff and I say, we need to refund this money. And then Jeff has to issue a check, which then I have to sign, and then we send it out by mail. Okay, it'd be nice to avoid all that. But anyways, that's the ACH process.
so does it, on the tax monies collected and received in the yellow copy be attached to the day's accumulation? Would the ACH be a part of the day's accumulation?
Everything,
But it-
cash.
But it
checks.
wouldn't be in, so like, when you get it, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. When you get it, when you go into the file to grab the stuff, in the ticker tape, right? If the ACH is there, that won't match the number of checks and the money's inside that safe. Is that correct?
Say it again. I'm sorry, I'm getting.
So the money,
confused.
so the money in the safe, if I'm tallying all the monies coming in at the counter by mail, ACH, and I put them in a ticker tape. There's no way to annotate that these came from ACH, these came from,
It's only the checks and the cash, right? ACH is.
that's what I was asking.
Yes, but the receipt has to be all of it,
So that,
because all of it's been receipted.
it is though, like, listen. Why isn't this?
Checks. You got $100 in cash. Your ACH things, which you never touch anyhow, because it goes to the bank, is $100. $300, boom.
But when he's doing the ticker tape does not say those things. It gives a number and it goes into the safe. Glenn compares that list to the money in the safe. And the money in the safe does not going to equal that because there's ACH payments, is what I'm trying to say. We're saying that this money here is each day's tax money collected is receipted, that money in the ticker tape is the receipted monies.
Part of the receipted money.
It's part of the receipt. It is not the receipted monies, though, is what you're saying. I'm trying to
It's
understand.
the total of all of those is what's receipted, right? Because we had some money come in through the ACH direct to the bank. We have some cash and we have some checks.
You must get an email too on the ACH things, don't you?
I don't.
You don't?
Well, you should.
You should, I would think so.
Is that right?
You're supposed to be on.
I don't get anything.
Well, alls I'm saying is that the treasurer was always, prior to that, the treasurer gets the same thing that Carl gets. And they're divided into building permits, Freedom of Information Act requests, and tax. And it comes, and the ACHs and all the other notices are under each category because they're separate accounts.
I would think that'd be very important for.
The other,
Get that too.
the other thing I might add, just, and I didn't want to get involved in this micromanagement minutia stuff, but I will say that when it comes to reconciling the bank account, the bank lists deposits that we make as separate amounts in the bank statement. And each ACH or the number, or if there were 3 that particular day, that total of ACHs is a separate figure on the bank statement and has to be reconciled separately. So if it's in the same master receipt with the deposit that goes to the bank, it makes it more difficult for reconciliation purposes because you have to go back and sort through the detail to find out why the system says we deposited $15,000 that day and the bank says we only deposited 13 that day. And you invariably find out just because the bank said, because there were $2,000 worth of ACHs that were different.
So on the receipt tape, which is done on a calculator, correct?
Yes.
Is there a subtotal for each mail and window and ACH? Or is it,
Oh, it's the checks and the cash.
but you were wanting totals, which include electronic.
I'm not sure what the question is. We did this all winter long. Carl and I
I'm
both,
trying to understand.
Carl and I both know exactly how to do it. I think the only disagreement is he doesn't want to do it.
Well, I think part of it is when he resigned from the deputy treasurer. I don't know if these are deputy treasurers.
They're not.
And I think that's how Carl views them, and that's why he was doing them before.
Yeah, and we had that conversation and I said, Carl, no, this is part of an office manager role because the deputy treasurer, we pay $383 a month, right? We don't pay them to do this. We pay them, in my mind, this is my interpretation. Jeff has a deputy clerk as well, so he can speak to his, but is to fill in when I'm not available. I go away for, heaven forbid, I go away for a vacation, right? I'd love to go away on a vacation one of these days. The deputy treasurer, which I'm hoping Liz will be able to do, we'll be able, but if we bury her in this massive thing that we just talked about, that it's over and above what we're paying her for. We're not paying for her to do that. It's really not this complex. I'm completely worn out.
I'd like to call for the question. I mean,
Okay.
we're either going to approve the resolution or not, so.
Yeah. There was one other thing that Carl had mentioned that he said that.
The question's been called.
Well, that's all right.
Okay.
I just was.
There's one other thing. On the agreement, it says 19.5 hours. And as Julie had kind of brought up, it's like, does that include his lunch, which it doesn't, pointed out. And so if we were to include the lunch hours in that, it would be 20.75 hours is what he was saying, of service provided per week if that lunch hours was included in that. And so he just pointed that out to us there.
All right.
All right.
I'll vote.
Okay. Supervisor Bosser,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski.
No.
Trustee Woods.
Yes.
Trustee Wright.
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no.
Then we'll move on to number 6, the discussion on the water franchise. Yeah. We're gonna do it as quickly as possible on this. So I'll give you, here's the original. And what we received, so the first one is a water and, the second one, the Buckman Thaw Seaver was the water franchise agreement that we had in November, I think it was November 18th, is that correct, son? November 18th, that we had entered into, and we said, hey, this is for specifically for the fire station and the township hall.
Three
Three.
resolutions.
You want to speak to that first?
No, it's just there were the past board approved in November 18th, 3 resolutions. 3, they're in the packet. And I have no idea whether those were ever sent to the city or not. I guess I don't know. I wasn't part of the past board. I don't know if it was ever communicated to the city or not.
That was handled by our township attorney. So
According to him, it wasn't. So.
Then he didn't.
So then in April 21st, the city of Marshall took it upon themselves to adopt a completely separate resolution that takes out clauses such as no annexation and said, hey, we just approved this, so you guys can approve it and send us a copy. And we haven't responded.
Yeah. So Rob and Seth said, we need to respond to because they were the last movers on this. We need to respond to them about this. He thinks, they both think that this is a big deal, that they, the water franchise agreement, and the fact that they put a line through our township should not be the reason why they can just spend 425 and annex a whole bunch of land because they needed a water line coming from Battle Creek. And so they think that it is, what was the word they used? They said it is a reasonable, would be considered by the courts to be a reasonable ask for 2 things that they think that we should kind of push for in this. One, that residents should be able to connect to those utilities if they want to. And secondly, that any property along those lines, like that would not be grounds for annexation. That water line cannot be used for annexing those properties along that loop. And so they want permission to be able to kind of put that into our taking a look at this and say, hey, we'd agree to a water franchise agreement if these things are into it. And then say, we'd like to hear back from you in about a month is from the city to hear what their response would be. He said that this would be the first step to even thinking about in terms of the 425 agreements moving forward, because that kind of deals with the annexing of land here. And if they say no, if they come back and say no, this water franchise agreement, we have a master agreement. If they come to us in that regard, then that gives us some opportunity to talk about the master agreement and some of the concerns that we have around the master agreement there. So that would be the proposal on the table, is to give the lawyers
the ability to put those two items in and give it to, the city and say we'd like a response from it. So that way we can see where we need to go next on that.
And it should come from our board and not from the lawyers.
Yeah, it'll come back to the board. I think what they're asking for is direction to create such a
And so
document.
one about the residents hooking up, that would be at city rates, or they would not have to, because right now somebody can hook up to it, but it's 1.5 times what a city rate would be unless you go into the city.
Now, are they able to, I didn't know if they were able to hook up to it. I don't think they
Well,
are.
no,
Not
it's a
the high
high pressure line right now. But so nobody can hook onto it. But what you're saying is residents should be able to hook up to it. Well, they could put a line off that became a low pressure and people could hook up to it, and they'd have to pay 1.5 times the rate that'd be in the city. So I guess,
Yeah, I don't,
So again, I think the idea was our lawyers would put together the framework, bring it back to the board, to put forward. So, I don't think we were expecting this evening to put the details to that. I think that's part of what we're asking them to do. The fact of the matter is, so just so everybody's clear, the city of Battle Creek and the city of Marshall put water lines through Emmett Township and Marshall Township without our agreement, without a franchise, which is illegal essentially. There has to be an agreement, and they just did it, right? And so, as Rob Fall brought up, I don't know about the past board, but he brought it up at the Emmett Township is, they had no right to do that. And so we're catching up.
and the meter that they read for Marshall is in our township. Yeah. At the edge of Emmett and Marshall Township is where they read the meter for the rates of usage.
So do you want to clarify the motion?
Say that again, Glenn. Sorry.
I don't know, did we make a motion?
there wasn't a motion made.
I said that I said, and maybe it was the wrong motion, but I said, to be able to give the township attorneys, a chance to be able to put together, a response to their water franchise agreement that included the providing utility services off the lines to the township, and to include no annexations off of those lines.
Oh, second that motion.
It moved and seconded. Motion, or any other discussions? Seeing none, we do this roll call.
I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski,
Yes.
trustee Woods,
Yes.
trustee Wright,
Yes.
supervisor Bossard,
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay. Covered those 5, and is there any other matters that should be brought before the board?
So I would like to make a motion that the job description be modified per the notice I handed out, to add the detail so that I can have support from the office manager to complete these tasks.
I will second it.
Well, I thought we covered that, but,
No, we covered what was existing.
right, okay. Is there any other discussion? I mean, my feeling is he's probably not gonna sign it if we add anything more to it. And so then we're gonna be in this process
Again,
again.
like I said, my wife is willing to step in and do, if there's a gap in the thing, she is willing to do that. So I just want to make that clear.
We just talked about things that moving forward, the franchise thing, and these are the things we need to be working on.
Right.
So let me ask you, Dave, so why would Carl refuse to do this?
I think there's just been some things that went on and Carl doesn't feel comfortable. And I think in time, things can heal and maybe there can be some more, but let's get an agreement that we can agree to and get these things going forward. And that's how I feel about it.
Okay, so the one section, let me find all my stuff. Got so much stuff.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be lack of clarity. I gotta find my agreement.
And on the, which one, do you need to see it, Glenn?
Yeah, the actual agreement with Carl that we voted on.
I'm open for adding, I think some of it's in that bullet point, Glenn, and I think that in that, I don't know if it needs all of it, but I'm open to the for deposits only, to be stamping those checks as they come in. I don't know how you feel about that, Dave.
Well, there was a section in there, I'm trying to find it, that talked about, and I think Dave kind of, I think he brought it, there were two things that were missing, actually. But the one was basically working it out with the treasurer. There's a line in there. I can't
Discrepancies?
find my copy.
Yep, that one is receive and receipt other township payments, resolve any discrepancies with the treasurer. That
Okay,
is the
so
fifth
what
bullet point down.
what does that mean? What does that mean to this board?
Like the ACH problem that you had. That was resolving a discrepancy.
Okay.
And in any of this, I know it was a sticking point between the Carl and you here a couple of months ago, and probably still is. But is any of this receding involve BS&A at all?
No. No, I think that's where I understood the big hiccup was. We went through this giant discussion about, BS&A, which is a very simple process. I mean, I've even made it simpler. And we tied that to the deputy treasurer. So the resolution was really to allow Carl to be able to do it, right? Because he's the one that's paid $45,000 or whatever the number is. And he takes a brunt of the workload, or should. I would argue today he has a lot of free time. When I'm here, he has a lot of free time. So that was the focus. Apparently he didn't like that resolution. So the BS&A is out. I mean, I'm doing that 100%. And I would, my goal is to train Liz to be able to do that, to get her on an account, to be able to make deposits and the things that are important. It's not to do all of these things that I've listed here. It's just not.
I know this
Yeah,
spells it out in more detail, but my question is, what do you see separate that's not in bullet point 4?
0.4.
Receive and receipt all tax monies at the counter electronically and by mail. Ensure that property tax bill bottom stub is collected or printed for each tax payment collected and placed within the payment in the safe.
Right, so right now that's not happening. Okay, so,
Right, because
so I guess the question becomes, maybe, I put a motion together, you seconded it. But part of the question mark is we're just not doing it. We're not doing anything that we've said, that none of it's happening.
But I think once we have this agreement done and finalized, then it will happen.
No, he's already told me. He's
How
not
many-
gonna do it. He's put it in writing. He's not gonna do it.
How many people come and pay their taxes and don't have a slip with them?
I would guess, I don't know, maybe 5%. I don't know. That's a guess.
Well, I was just wondering because I guess if I was paying my taxes, I'd want them to go, I'd bring my slip with me, so I made sure my taxes got paid to the right property. So that's, I mean,
But what is what are you trying to get at?
well, I mean, as far as people getting, when I hear receipt, I'm thinking about somebody coming to the county, they're paying your taxes, and you either stamp it or you give them a receipt for with their things, and then he takes the money and he puts it in the safe. And as far as the checks come in, he probably takes them, their address to the Marshall Township treasurer, and he puts them in the thing, and there should be a receipt in there for what taxes they are, because, I mean, when I send my taxes in, there might be one check and 4 or 5 or more receipts. And
So how much did we receive?
what I'm asking is.
Let me go get this will be instructive. Let me go get the
He
files.
showed me.
I'm gonna go get the file.
It does.
Right. Because when you send, and then if you want a receipt back, when you send them by mail, it used to be you had to send an envelope back with it. I don't know if it's like that anymore.
Some do, some don't. Some don't even care.
Well, I just send it in and my check is
You check your statement at the end of the month and it's processed and so, but, you know.
Leaving at about 10 because I'm gonna pass due
I
on
know.
vacation.
okay.
Yeah.
In the meeting, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, our rule says 10 o'clock.
okay.
Sorry.
And I just say that because I can alert
No.
my backup guy.
Yeah. I can take notes from here. If
Yeah.
you need to. I can do that. So I apologize.
I'll ask her till 10, but I didn't know if we were gonna.
Oh. I just wanted to make sure that there was not something in there that.
We're gonna be back here.
Yeah.
No.
If we.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure that we see that there's parallels between the bullet point
Yeah.
and what is being done. Because I felt like I was like, I don't think.
Did you put this together or did
That was
they put that
previous.
together for us?
Yeah.
Well, I know it's
Oh,
all
yes.
conglomeration.
That was, they hit the city.
But this is as,
I have no idea because I didn't know.
Dated.
but this is the latest copies of.
Yeah. April 21st.
Well, you can add them up.
I do. Alls I know is how I did it for 20 years, that the auditors audited. The person who sat at the front desk, I got them just like this. Because the treasurer is paid a salary, is what I thought, so I did do it. And any counter payments or payments that came in the Dropbox that were.
Those would go outside of the file, which they are in there in the.
Right, and I got all of the stuff, the ACHs, they ran copies of, so did I from And that's what I got in the top drawer and made the entry.
And one time I overpaid my
But
tax
that's,
and Sue called me up and the next day or two and I rewrote her check. She gave me the other one and we were good.
That was nice. Nice, it's always nice to get money and you're like, oh, you didn't lose all that.
Did you figure out how much we received?
If I open them all up and have a calculator, I can tell you.
Sorry, right. Wouldn't that be a great thing for an office manager to
Be a
do?
great thing for the treasurer to do.
Okay, so I think we made a motion. I think it was seconded.
I think we've been around the tree enough
Okay.
times.
I don't know what that means, call for the question.
I think that, is there any more discussion?
And when the question's called, that takes precedence.
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
trustee Woods,
No,
trustee Wright,
I'm gonna say no.
supervisor Bozzer,
No.
and I'll vote no. 1 yes, 4 no.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on agenda items by the board members? Okay, I guess we're ready for.
Well, we've had the roll call.
Oh, we already had it
Yep.
because we.
And each
Okay.
one.
And at this time, we'll open it up for public comments again. Yeah.
Marshall Township resident and taxpayer, as well as Glenn's wife. And how you hear what I have to say is up to you. I made a note, this is not in my presentation. We will probably expect our taxes to go up because the increased monthly cost of the fire station. Wait for that. I am deeply concerned by the board's decision to continue compensating Carl Fowler for 4 days of work per week while permitting him to work only 3. How does this arrangement make sense? Furthermore, allowing him to define his role specifically as office manager raises serious questions. Why is this being allowed? By passing the job description for Carl, the board is acting as his advocate, when in reality, you are tasked at being the Marshall Township residents' advocates. From my perspective, it appears that this decision was made because it's the path of least resistance. But leadership isn't about choosing what's easy. It's about doing what's right, even when it's difficult. True character is demonstrated when one is willing to confront uncomfortable situations, engage honest dialogue, and pursue respectful, principled solutions. The newly elected board members campaigned on a promise of transparency and commitment to listening to the voters of Marshall Township, and that promise is what earned them their seats. In this case, the transparency is what we now understand that Carl's agreement with the previous board was for a 4-day per week schedule. As we're listening to taxpayers, many have made their voices heard at board meetings, clearly expressing that the salary for Carl is for a full 4 days of work is what should be expected. Just imagine the amount of progress, the number of tasks that could be completed if that standard were upheld. I've attended every board meeting and I cannot recall a single taxpayer standing at this podium in support of the decision to pay Carl for 4 days a week while requiring him to work only 3. If I'm mistaken, please feel free to correct me. You now had the opportunity to interview a candidate for the office manager position, someone who is willing to work 4 days a week for the same salary currently being paid. Choosing not to act on this opportunity is fiscally irresponsible. In my opinion, when the taxpayers have clearly asked you to be more responsible with their and your tax dollars, and you choose to ignore it, it's deeply concerning. It reminds me of a past board meeting during the mega site discussions when a resident after resident spoke out against the PA 425 transfers. At that time, a board member responded, "You voted us in, you just need to trust us." That kind of dismissive attitude has no place in government that claims to value transparency and accountability. Unfortunately, this situation is a clear example of that same pattern. When the voices of voters are ignored, it becomes evident that nothing has truly changed. And that's both frustrating and disheartening. New subject. Could you please clarify whose responsibility is to manage the lawn and landscaping maintenance at the Township Hall property? It appears that this task is being neglected as the yard has become quite unkept and frankly an eyesore. I strongly encourage all board members and any concerned residents to take a walk around the township property as Mick Woods did to fully see the extent of the neglect I'm referring to. The lack of basic lawn and landscape maintenance is hard to miss. Mick took it upon himself to do some weeding. Thank you, Mick. As a resident, I take pride in maintaining my own property, and I believe the township should uphold the same standard for shared community spaces, especially one as visible as the Township Hall on Myron Avery Drive. It may be time to consider hiring a new lawn care company, one that takes the responsibility seriously and is committed to maintaining a clean, presentable appearance for our property. That means keeping lawn healthy and weed-free, trimming bushes regularly, fertilizing as needed, and addressing obvious issues like vines growing unchecked on the building. I hope that this issue can be addressed promptly and reflect the pride we all share in our community. We now have a brand new $3.5 million Fire Station 1, and it's truly impressive. Thank you, Jay Riggs, for your careful and detailed oversight throughout the project. Your leadership has clearly made a difference. The contrast between the new Fire Station 1 and our aging Township Hall is stark. While the fire station reflects progress and pride, the current state of the hall falls short. It's a reminder of what's possible with thoughtful planning and strong execution. Had the previous board given similar consideration to the offer from MEDA, we might be now meeting in an equally outstanding Township Hall. Unfortunately, that opportunity was missed, and as we know, voters responded accordingly. Let's continue to make decisions that reflect long-term vision and community pride. It's time we raise our standards and invest in making our shared space more visually appealing. After all, first impressions matter, not to just visitors, but to residents who deserve a welcoming and well-maintained community hub. Let's make our Township Hall a place we are proud to call home.
I was really concerned with, the holding tank thing at the fire station. And the placement of the fire station, they just do it and then ask for forgiveness. That's always easier. That's what I've always heard. And apparently that's the way they do it. Because I still can't believe we're just, and we're taking on so much with that fire station that MEDA should really be covering. And okay, they're gonna put a little bit of money in an account. Well, yeah, I don't think it's enough. And then the gentleman that spoke up here, he said that the fire station had to be moved for the road to go through there. Well, we were told many, many times it wasn't for the road. It was because they needed the place to put the water through. Now we're told that, and now he was saying, no, it's for Michigan Avenue, and he called it Michigan Avenue, and I didn't know it was renamed. This is Michigan Avenue over here. And something, I'm still just dumbfounded about how much goes on. It's